How do you lead your child, or how do you deal with your child when you think they're gay? Uh, I'll come back to that. How do you avoid making them feel unloved or unaccepted, even though you can't accept that decision as a way of life for them? Okay, first of all, I would highly recommend you do not utilize the words that the people who are trying to pervert our society use. They are genius at using words. Pro-abortion became pro-choice. Think about that. Oh, we're not pro-abortion. I remember when they were pro-abortion. I don't know, Dr. Nathan, I forget what his last name was, but he's the one that came up with that and later became pro-life, and he went to his grave so sorry that he had done that. So they went from being pro-abortion to pro-choice. You're not committed to homosexual sin. Oh no, you're gay. You know, and it's just one thing after another after another. They stole the rainbow. Remember, God's the one that started with the rainbow. He had a reason why he put it there. You know, it's just one thing after another. So the first thing I would say is don't buy into that. Don't call them gay. Don't tell them they're gay. Say if you want to be committed to homosexual sex. And the thing is too. Now watch. You ready? Homosexual sex, the one that is most prevalent, is when a man takes his penis and sticks it in another man's rear end. Now here's why I did it, because a couple of you went, yeah, yeah, and that's what they don't want you to do. So they say things like gay. Here's what they always say. Hey, doesn't matter who people want to love. I would wholly agree with that. Matter of fact, the Bible says we are to love everybody. It even says we're supposed to love our enemies. But see what they did there? They worked with the words. Because, guys, the issue here isn't love. You can love all you want. I have lots of men that I love, but I don't have sex with them. That's the only difference. The issue here is who we have sex with. They've tried to make it love. You need to be able to show them that reality. Also, we have a seminar on homosexual sex so that you can understand the sin that's involved in there. You can understand the damage that's there. You can show them and walk them through the process of doing that. Guys, I've helped many people walk away from the homosexual lifestyle. And what it comes down to is you walk them through an understanding of God's principles of sexuality most of the time. And it really is fascinating. And you should check this with your child, is that it's above 80% have been molested at some point in their life, have been sexually molested. And so what's happened, and this is what you need to be able to show them, is that through what took place, through something typically that they hated, it ended up rewiring them toward perversion. All right? It took them a specific place. Being able to walk them through God's design for sexuality, how it's supposed to take place and happen, how the fulfillment that can be there, going back to God's design in the very beginning, the man and the woman and how it's supposed to be, whether you're talking about transgender things or you're talking about cross-dressing or you're talking about homosexual or bisexual, being able to walk them through the process and help them see that clearly can be shockingly helpful. And the thing you have to understand is that people are like, oh, well, they can't help it. First of all, study after study. Everybody's tried to find the gay gene. It doesn't exist. They've never been able to find it. They never will. It's not going to happen. This is not, oh my gosh, I couldn't help it. I mean, I have to do this. There are a bunch of people at the different locations who are single, who are not having sex with other people, who would like to, but they're not, because they are choosing to make a decision to obey God. So why all of a sudden on this one? Can't help it. Can't help it. So people are not gay. Every single person who's involved in homosexual sin is a heterosexual individual who is broken in some way or who is become perverted in some way that can in fact be brought back to where they need to be. Now, whether they choose to do that would be obviously something that they have to go through. What you have to understand through this is you ask the question, so how do you do that without making them feel unloved or attacked or whatever? You're going to have to be able to speak truth to them, and the Bible says we're to speak the truth in love, but you're going to have to be able to say some really clear, some really difficult things there to be able to help them to understand the principles, and it's not going to be easy. And so if your goal is to continue to keep them as a friend, or if you're a parent that's trying to buddy up with your kids, this is going to be problematic because they're going to have to hear things that they don't want to hear. And it's just such an important thing because we're talking about eternal issues here. Remember, 1 Corinthians 6, variety of places in the New Testament say that if people stay committed to homosexual sin, they're going to go to hell. I mean, it's very, very specific. It puts them right there with murderers. And so, guys, that's not me talking. So what you have to realize is you ask the question, how can I make sure that they feel loved? God said something that necessarily by itself doesn't feel very loving. But it's the most loving thing to say if the end result is that these people end up in heaven instead of in hell. And so you teach them the appropriateness of what sexuality was for, what it was about. Try and get into where the brokenness might have taken place, the confusion. Another thing to be aware of, too, especially if you find that this is something, usually it's more female, that I don't know if you've heard this whole thing where all of a sudden you've got like either high school or sometimes college and they're experimenting. It's really interesting how it's kind of not a terribly uncommon thing where kind of get their minds out kind of wrecked and stuff, and they start being involved and toying with the lesbian involvement and things like that. What's wild is the statistics that come back that well over 90% of anybody who even does something like that will come back, end up being married, having kids, those type of things. And so sometimes there's just kind of a phase thing that's going through. It's kind of sometimes kind of a chemical hormone type thing that's taking place. And so I wouldn't lose hope with that. But you're going to have to be able to stand. And here's the deal. You cannot stand on, hey, I don't like this. Hey, I don't think you should do this. Hey, I don't think this is healthy. Hey, this is embarrassing to me or to the family or anything like that. It's got to be based on, listen, this is not God's design for you. It's not. And to be able to show them God's design and help them to understand that, to speak from the depth of your heart to say, I love you and I want the very best for you. And I can promise you, this is not it.